Hi, I'm Sam Jeppy, founder of the American Academy of Vedic Art and Science, with the April 2013 Vedic Astrology forecast. It's quite an exciting month coming up, a lot of interesting twists and turns, including a powerful lunar eclipse around the end of the month, and a lot of planets shifting from Pisces into Aries. So let's get started. Well, the month starts with a lot of inspiration and focus as the moon goes through Sagittarius on April 1st through the 3rd, and it's also aspected by Saturn. So this is going to bring a lot of, as we say, hope and inspiration and purpose and dedication. So you want to be really concentrating on your spiritual practices and really connecting with your higher sense of meaning and purpose at the beginning of the month. It's a great way to start the month off. So that's going to lead up to this very tight conjunction in Pisces between Sun, Mars, and Venus. Now, they've been very close together for a while, and Venus and Mars are what are called combust, which literally, when you think of something being combustible, that's the feeling of Venus and Mars, which are the relationship planets. They actually rule the opposite parts of our relationships. Venus is the part of us that wants to yield and compromise. Mars is the part of us that wants to assert our individuality. And when they get really close to the Sun, they become like flashpoints, and they can be very touchy, and we can tend to overexpress our desire to compromise and our desire to want to assert our individuality. So there could be a lot of this kind of inner conflicts, especially in your partnerships, that you've been experiencing since the end of March, and this can carry through until early April, as Venus, Mars, and the Sun will be combust for quite a while. Now, they're with exalted Venus in Pisces, so there's a lot of intelligence around our relationships now as this works out, and that'll continue until around the second part, around April 10th. But you want to realize that there's some real touchiness in your romantic relationships right now. But you know, all of this is being helped because Venus and Jupiter are also in an exchange with each other. So there's a lot of higher lessons being learned, and April 5th through the 8th, you can really feel a lot of this volatility as Venus, Mars, and the Sun are all very close together in Pisces, and also getting close to the new moon, which, by the way, happens on April 9th. So April 9th, we have the new moon, which comes together in Pisces. And again, this brings the mind and consciousness into that field as well. So it starts a new cycle of creativity and a sort of metaphysical connection. Pisces is the reflective, feminine, emotional side of Jupiter, which is the planet of teaching. Jupiter is called Guru in Sanskrit, which is literally teachings and those things that we believe in that give us a sense of hope and purpose. So it's a new moon in Pisces where Venus and Mars are very combust, like I just described, and at the very end of Pisces, they're all about to go into Aries. This is what I talked about at the beginning of the forecast. So a lot of energy feeling in transition, where we're moving from this sort of cocooning, dream, unconscious, subconscious dream state into a cycle of explosive potential, because all those planets are about to move into Aries, which is about birth. So it's really kind of a story of two different months. From April 1st until around April 10th or 11th, we have all these planets in Pisces. Then they move into Aries, where we have all this energy and inertia, or I'm sorry, all of this energy and enthusiasm moving forward. So we can see that really tend to culminate, or we see this new cycle begin April 9th with the new moon in Pisces, joined Venus and Mars at the very end of Pisces. And literally the next day, Venus moves into Aries, and then the day after that, or actually 2 days after that, Mars moves into Aries. So we're very much about this Aries cycle beginning and the Pisces cycle ending April 10th, April 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. All these energies are shifting. So around that time of the month, notice yourself sort of shifting from a kind of dream state into an awakened, activated state. So one of the things is to try to get important matters that you've been mulling over in your mind, try to get them resolved by like the 9th, the 10th, the 11th so that by the time these planets move into Aries, you're ready to take action, because it's been that kind of dreamy, sort of escapist mentality for, around the last month or so, with all these planets going through Pisces. So it's a good time to really, use your imagination and try to connect to higher purposes, but around the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, hit the ground running and start something and really get moving with your new projects when all those planets move into Aries. So then once that happens, like immediately thereafter, the moon will join Jupiter in Taurus, April 13th and 14th. Now the moon is exalted in Taurus because the moon is that emotional state that's always kind of fluctuating. We always feel a little different day to day. That's because of the moon. And so the moon moves into Taurus in its sign of exaltation, April 13th and 14th. It's exalted there because Taurus is very solid and stable, and the moon is like water, which is, very, up and down and emotional and changeable. So the fixed Earth of Taurus will bring a lot of emotional stability, April 13th and 14th, and it's joined Jupiter, which is, as I already said, that planet of teaching, of guru, and higher sense of meaning and purpose. So then, the next big thing that really happens, April 18th and 19th, we have the moon goes into Cancer in its own sign. Again, this is another emotionally intuitive sign, but it's also aspected by Saturn and Mars once it goes into Cancer. And these are special planetary aspects used in Vedic astrology, and they're very important as the planets move through the sky. So Saturn and Mars are aspecting each other, but they're also aspecting the moon as it goes through Cancer. So April 18th and 19th can be some trying times. It could be very emotional because the moon in Cancer is already emotional. It's like the sign of motherhood and nurturing, where we want to connect with others through selfless love and have our boundaries overrun the boundaries of others. Boundaries, big key word for Cancer. The need to establish boundaries. You see, a mother doesn't have good boundaries with the baby because they're not supposed to. The boundaries of the mother overrun the boundaries of the child, so the child can be taken care of before the child can maintain that social order, that social equality. So that's the sign of Cancer, where we just feel everything deeply without a lot of equality or need for reciprocity or to have things be reciprocated. Cancer is just about that selfless love that overflows. So the need for boundaries in our adult relationships become very important in the sign of Cancer. So you might feel this lesson very strong April 18th and 19th as the moon goes through Cancer and is aspected by both Mars and Saturn. Try not to be a victim and try not to be a big baby on those days, okay? And then April 23rd and 24th, the next big cycle that we're going to have is we have this moon goes through Virgo, and it's aspected by Jupiter. See, the planets aspect, and that's very important because they share their energy that way. Just like the moon, when it went through Cancer, was aspected by Saturn and Mars, like I just talked about. Moon goes through Virgo April 23rd and 24th, and it's aspected by Jupiter, who is Guru, the teacher. You always look for important Jupiter aspects to bring about growth, expansion, hope, a higher sense of meaning and purpose. So that can be quite auspicious. Now the moon is also aspected by debilitated Mercury, that's opposite. So we need to be careful about like exaggerating and sort of mixing the details up a little bit at this time as well. But in general, April 23rd and 24th are very good for connecting with higher teachings, higher purpose, and a deeper meaning for your life, which is good because then we're going to have the eclipse on April 25th. There's a lunar eclipse happening in Libra, and it's quite a powerful eclipse because the moon is joined exalted Saturn in Libra, and opposite that, because this is a lunar eclipse where the orbits of the Earth, Moon, and Sun all line up in the same point of three-dimensional space. So we have this split, this opposition, when we have the lunar eclipse, because you have the Sun on one side of the Earth and the Moon on the other. So the Moon moves in between the Sun and the Earth, and the Earth moves in between the sun and the moon and casts a shadow on the moon. And they're lined up in the same plane in three-dimensional space as well. So there's a lot of polarity in this one because we have Sun and Mars in Aries, and the Sun is exalted and Mars is in its own sign. So it's a lot of intensity that I already talked about with all those planets moving into Aries early in the month. Now we're going to really feel the kind of inner conflict between our individual assertion and our individual self-will and the things I want for me and the things I want to accomplish, harmonized with the need to listen to others, connect what we're inspired by to others in a sense of individual connection as well as social connection. And especially the social connection comes in because Saturn is also there exalted. So this is an eclipse, so it means it's very concentrated. So you could really feel a big split here. You want to be careful in your romantic relationship for sure, because we have exalted Sun on one side and then eclipsed Moon on the other. So it could be very tempting to cut out the relationship and say, that's it, I've had enough. Because the Sun, Mars, and Aries are very empowered, and the Moon, being eclipsed and with exalted Saturn, is not feeling so strong. So you want to really watch your emotional state, watch your relationships around this eclipse, April 25th. And then it gets a little tricky as well because the Moon also moves into Scorpio after that, April 27th and 28th. The Moon moves into Scorpio and is aspected by Jupiter, so that's also a bit tricky. So one important thing to do around the eclipse day, April 25th, there's a Vedic mantra called the Hanuman Chalisa, which would be very important to chant. The Vedic god Hanuman will be very important at that time because the Moon is eclipsed in a nakshatra called Swati, and the ruler of Swati is called Vayu, who is the wind, and Hanuman, who is the monkey god, the hero of the Indian epic called the Ramayana, is an incarnation of Vayu. Actually, he was said to be the son of Vayu, the son of the wind. And it's a great symbol for the power of our mind. Hanuman is a symbol of like the king of the monkeys. And a monkey is a symbol for our mind that's jumping all over the place. The monkey mind. And it's a metaphor for our mind and our thoughts, because our thoughts run crazy like a bunch of monkeys. Hanuman is the king of the monkeys, which shows what happens when you bring all of that intellectual power into a concentrated form. Then the power of the mind becomes like Superman. Hanuman is like the Superman of the Indian literature. And it's literally the power of your mind. Your mind is so incredibly powerful, but you need to concentrate it. You need to learn to concentrate the mind rather than having the mind run crazy like a bunch of wild monkeys. So this is a very powerful metaphor for that full moon, especially that full moon eclipse on April 25th. So listen to the Hanuman Chalisa or get an image of the Hanuman, of Hanuman, and have that inspire you instead of having your monkey mind say, that's it, I'm out of here, and freak out. Stay focused and grounded, especially in any kind of spiritual practices like yoga or things that make you physically strong. Hanuman is also related to Mars, and so that can really take you through, especially because the couple days after that, April 27th and 28th, the Moon will be debilitated in Scorpio, where it could be even more difficult because Scorpio is where we have a lot of imagined fears. Remember, we said the Moon is exalted in Taurus, which is opposite because Taurus is very solid and stable. Scorpio is opposite, that's very restless, emotionally restless. But April 27th and 28th, the Moon is also aspected by Jupiter. Again, Jupiter is guru, he's teacher, so even though there's emotional restlessness, there's a lot of grace flowing. So that full moon eclipse on April 25th is big. However, it's sandwiched between these Jupiter aspects. Because remember, on the couple days before that eclipse, the moon went through Virgo, which was aspected by Jupiter. Then right afterwards, when the moon goes through Scorpio, it's aspected by Jupiter again. So there's a lot of God's grace flowing, a lot of potential, especially with all those planets in Aries. After the 10th of April, a lot of capacity to act with courage and strength and will, but don't lose your connection to especially your romantic partners or those other people in your life, because you want them in your life, obviously, but you also need to connect your vision with other people. Nothing is worthwhile if it's done at the expense of all of our connections. So that's the April 2013 in a nutshell. I hope this was interesting for you. Leave me some comments. Let me know if this is the first time you've ever heard one of my forecasts or whatever. Let me know what you think, and be in touch. Share this with your friends as well if you think it will benefit them.